jump that you have there, and the assumption is going to be that it's the maintenance that's going to be on generation. Now, with what you have and the space that you have to maintain the plant, we would need a breakdown of that. I'm sure I don't think you'd be able to give us now, but it's part of what Ms. Maset is requesting, the breakdown of those maintenance costs and what's causing that jump. It can't be that you are going to increase maintenance. There's only 365 days in a year and you can only take out so much. So what is causing that, and how are you going to do that? I'm also going to read out the questions from the members of the public. In fact, really, the question is, in your view, ESCOM, do you think the increase, this increase will influence the economic development, in particular SMMEs? And I think the other part of the question is, what really do you consider to be the contributing factor for ESCOM to be where it is, in as far as its financial status and service delivery? Those are the two questions from the member of the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pukula. I do have some questions as well. Maybe I should start with the question pertaining to the cost, employee costs, the head counts. That slide that made reference to Rotex Industries, you went past it very quickly. All I wanted to just get clarity on is whether the head count and the cost that are included in the application, whether such costs include the Rotex Industries. I couldn't get clarity from the slide. You went through it very quickly. And still on the issue of the employee cost, if you can please justify the issue of the lower energy output, as we have seen that the sales are coming down, and at the same time the costs are increasing, and you also have increased the number of employees. If you can please just assist us with that. There's a question that we asked in Cape Town. ESCOM has not responded to that question directly, and that is the question pertaining to the performance at 75% as an efficiency target. As you will appreciate that once we get to this stage of an application, and you also undertake to make sure that the asset performs, and so that the public can be able to compensate for the performance of the assets. So we had indicated that, or we had asked ESCOM whether you will have a problem with NERSA setting the efficiency target of performance at 75% EAF, as opposed to you, ESCOM, undertaking to reach 70% by March 2025. We have not received a response from ESCOM as to what would it take ESCOM to reach the 75% efficiency target, especially because you are asking for more money for maintenance, and you have also indicated that you will be prioritizing 8 power stations, and that in terms of the generation recovery plan, you are aiming for high performance. So we do want to get a response to that, so that we can look into that. And I think that is also ties in with the question that is asked by the chairperson of the energy regulator on maintenance. The other question that I just want to ask from ESCOM is, and that is the last question, is what measures ESCOM will put in place to make sure that we turn around this declining sales, because obviously that is not good, the declining sales that we see in the application. If you can also just come in, and you know that this is a concern that was raised from the beginning of this does not see that there is an impact at all on the extent of the increase that ESCOM is requesting. Because ESCOM says that irrespective of whether you can increase by 40%, industries has the ability to pay and is willing to pay. It is not sensitive to that. You're saying that the level of sensitivity of the industry, whether you can increase by 36%, it doesn't react. It will still buy electricity and is able to afford. But also you're not appreciating what you are implicating there. That actually you are showing the entrenched problem of the market structure that we have, which is that you are showing that there is strong market power on ESCOM. That means that irrespective of what you do, those customers, industries are captured. They can't do anything because they will still need electricity. So that is also the other side of the coin that you are implying. But you are also not showing, as of 2020, looking at the level of increase up to now, including this proposed 36%, will the industry still be in a position to absorb this? But also you're not showing evidence of industries that closed down, small businesses that could not take the price of electricity, investments that could not take place, and also you're not showing other investments where industry had to look at the alternatives so that they reduce their consumption from ESCOM and also look at other alternatives. So it should, and that is information that is in the public domain, but ESCOM does not look into it as evidence that we will also take into consideration. So would like ESCOM to take these issues into consideration when you respond again on the issue of elasticity, which you have not looked into. Thank you very much. If you can respond to those questions. Do you need maybe 5 minutes for caucus? Okay, thank you very much. Yes, we can. Shall we give ESCOM 10 minutes? We can take a sort of a break. You showed me that you're still smoke. our seats so that we can get a response from ESCOM. Please try to get the other stakeholders that are outside so that we can resume the hearing. Yes, Gerald, please let us know when you are done. We'll wait for you. All right, thank you. ESCOM, you may come forward, please.
Chair, thank you for an opportunity to respond to the questions that have been put forward to ESCOM. With regards to the issue on the maintenance jump, regarding, assuming that it's mainly generation, there's a request for the breakdown of the maintenance costs and the causes. Chair, we request that we be given permission to submit those in writing to the regulator. With regards to the question on the employee costs, whether or not it includes a ROTEC, that does not include ROTEC, so it's ESCOM holdings. Then, regarding the question of whether ESCOM would have a problem with the regulator setting an energy availability factor target of 75 as an efficient operator, again, Chair, can we then request that we provide a written submission to the regulator? The question around what caused ESCOM to be in its current financial position, financial state, actually our view is that ESCOM has historically not been able to recover its efficient costs, and therefore the costs that we recovered were not efficient, were not reflective of the costs that we've actually incurred, the efficient costs that we've actually incurred. And our view therefore is that that is the reason where we find ourselves in a nutshell, where we are from a financial point of view. Question around maintenance again, prioritizing the 8 stations, I will include that. We'll include that in the written response. Then, Chair, I'll request my colleagues to respond to the balance proposal.
Chair, on the question of employee numbers with respect to decreasing sales, I think part of the challenge around the employee numbers is that you need your cost breakdown and your tariff structure needs to be cost reflective. So your transmission and distribution costs, those are fixed costs, and those tariffs needs to appropriately reflect those operational costs and be billed to customers appropriately on that. Those are not energy costs, and at the moment we're running the risk of volumetric charges not being appropriately recovered. So those are there. We have shown in the presentation the significant increase on the workload and the requirements to service the networks.
subsidize large consumers not getting the same tariffs as the households installing solar. And a lot of the large consumers are installing solar to resell to ESCOM. And how are you balancing that instead of just looking at the household consumers in what you mentioned around the retail tariffs, and that you need to have prices that consider that. So those, as the chairperson has agreed, can be provided as the part of your closing remarks. Thank you.
we did a cost analysis, and at the end of the day, it was cheaper for that company to use the little power that was available as a trickle charger and just install a very big battery and energy system. So by having that very big hurdle for getting into a grid and allowing a municipality to charge absolute ridiculous fees to get onto the grid, Eskom has indirectly lost that customer for the next 20 years. If that price was customers that's got nowhere to go. So it brings me back to that KFC, for example. They have got no control over the costs of electricity. You must understand that Eskom sells electricity to a municipality, that sells it to a landlord, that sells it to KFC or to other tenants. They've got absolutely no control over the cost. So the moment they've got any control over the cost, then they are going to take it. But unfortunately also in some instances, because of the cost of renewables, you'll see that every single shopping centre in the country's got solar and it's got renewable energy. However, those same landlords are standing firmly behind the national rules and regulation and these tariffs, and they're charging those tariffs to the tenants. So we're in this situation where everybody that's got the ability to purchase cheaper electricity is doing it, but there are so many people that has got no control over the cost of electricity. And if they've got no renewable options, they might just go out of business. I've also, just for your reference sake, I've put the cost of if Eskom gets their wish what electricity would cost in the future, and you'll see there how many of these tenants by 2027, 2028 would be over 5 rand a kilowatt hour. So that would be past the point where it would be profitable even with generators. So the sales will be to such a point where it is cheaper for the majority of South Africans to put in renewable energy systems and to generate the electricity themselves. So one of the key problems that I also see amount of calculations we need to do and the cost of impact that the rising electricity tariffs had on your industrial customers and mining customers is astronomical. I know Eskom was at the CNI event last week where all your heavy users of were present, and every single one of them are going to go for wheeling options, battery options to survive, not because they want to go and generate electricity, because they've got a desire to get into the electricity game. It's simply a matter of surviving and not being in a situation where they can't afford to manufacture steel or steel products or mining anymore. So I do think that there's an opportunity there for Eskom, and they did speak about it. Instead of just allowing everybody to put up renewable energy, it would be nice to see them approaching those customers and being the first in line to say, you know what, we'll assist you with that. Or you spoke about your some of your key industrial customers that you've got price and negotiate pricing agreements with. Those guys to say, look, how do we go forward? And the reason why I'm mentioning it, this is Eskom's baseload, and understanding a bit about the electricity in total. If we start messing with the baseload, electricity is going to become extremely expensive even for Eskom to produce. So we need a constant baseload, and we have a very big customer base that has got very big baseload, but we need to look after them and not motivate them to go away. And the way I've suggested to do this again is a single tariff structure, and I'll run through it very quickly. Starts with the indigent residential, indigent business to look after the townships. We need to make sure that there's business there. Then residential. I think Eskom also knows that they need to have a basic fee to cover their transmission and distribution costs, because there is a tendency to go away. It can't be that high to motivate the rich people to just generate their own electricity, but it needs to be fair and a flat rate per kilowatt hour. A business tariff, Eskom has got a current business tariff, and that's from customers consuming under 25 kVA. Miniflex for customers from 25 to 500 kVA. I do think that Eskom needs to put in a mid-flex for those customers between 500 kVA to 1 MVA. Farm flex, because I think the farmers have got a completely different and unique challenges, and they have the ability to generate. They've got space sometimes and so on. So I do believe a different tariff structure would be appropriate for them. Megaflex for customers between 1 MVA and 50 MVA. Uniflex, which is just the current Megaflex, and for municipalities. And then industrial flex. Again, I cannot emphasize enough for Eskom how important it is to look after your largest consumers. And I'm talking about everybody that's got a notified maximum demand of bigger than 50 megawatts. So, and uses more than 150 million kilowatt hours a year. If we lose those customers either by closing down or by renewables, I think Eskom's challenge to generate electricity and the cost of it is going to skyrocket. So these people need to be sat around a table, and a coherent plan needs to be made with these guys, taken into consideration. So, yeah.
You have taken about 90 minutes. If you can try to wrap up. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's it. Yeah. If there's any questions, or so on, you're welcome to.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Derricks. I want to check if Mr. Kupan has a question. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Diedericks. You're saying that there should be consequences for non-payment, and who must do that? What must happen when the person responsible for those consequences that I think are clearly defined in the Electricity Regulation Act and in the bylaws? So what must happen when that person doesn't do that function? Thank you.
I believe that the person paying must always step and say, you know what, my municipality has completely failed me, Eskom, I need to approach you directly, or my landlord has completely failed me, City Power, I need to approach you directly. That answers.
Right, thank you very much. We don't have any further questions. We thank you for your time. Thank you very much. All right, we now going to call the next presenter, which is Nomsa. We've got the name of Spy Sibutsa. Spay. Also Spy. Spay.
Mandla,
We have not allowed you. We have not
Mandla.
allowed you. Not yet.
no, sorry, Chairperson. But I saw for a change, colleagues from the DA were comfortable. They know for a change we are going to speak the same language.
All right, Buti, do you have any objection in taking the oath?
No, Chairperson.
All right, thank you very much. May you please raise your right hand? Do you do you solemnly declare that the evidence you are going to give to the panel is the truth and the whole truth?
It is, I swear I do.
Thank you very much. May you please state your name and your designation at NUMSA?
Pulu, Spay, Sebota. I'm the regional secretary responsible for Malanga province and part of Limpopo.
All right, thank you very much. Now that you have the permission to speak, you can now tell us, then you can start your slogan, say NUMSA if you want to do so that you can walk the path properly. Thank you.
No, Chair, if they start, they won't stop. No, Chair, just few observations before I go to our presentation. Firstly, I was a bit worried that I didn't see political parties, even though I see them here, I didn't see them on the program. When are they going to speak? I don't know. That was the first worry, because I saw they were part of the program before the day. Secondly, why we were brought to such a hot place, Chairperson, and I know it's not your problem. That's just for me completely out of order. With that we need to emphasize. Thirdly, my colleagues from ESCOM, and you know, with ESCOM Chair, some may be NUMSA members without us knowing. So I want to be harsh, but not too harsh. And language here, no, these are public hearings. You can't be coming and speak above the people. That I have a serious problem with. I need I think the only person who heard is from consulting, because he's in your space. These are members of the public. Try to bring down your presentation to their level at all material times. It's just a humble plea, but please don't destroy the union if you are members. But we are just saying, please come to the level of the people. Look, we start by greetings, Chairperson, and revolutionary greetings to the shop stewards and ordinary members and activists of NUMSA. Where the leadership of ESCOM, our understanding was that it was going to be led by Mayor Hasha to Talimaji, but it's led by three esteemed gentlemen actually, who spoke serious English. You guys were speaking English. Leadership from Agri Mpumalanga, who will come after me, the leadership from Lowfell Chamber of Business and Tourism, and the general audience in public. I've seen the DA, I've seen Ahang SA. At some stage, DA was worried when they saw the red t-shirt. Like, is that EFF? It's NUMSA. It's NUMSA. It's NUMSA corporates here. So you can relax, man. But I don't see your other GNU partners here who are saying they are the leader of society when society must make submissions. Anyways, that's a debate for another day. Chair, as NUMSA, we are the largest trade union in the country, in the continent. Maybe some might not know, but we are the biggest union in this country. We are the biggest union in the continent. We are the biggest union in the southern hemisphere. We actually about the third biggest union in the world. You may want to Google that, but we are a serious union. That's why we participated throughout these public hearings, and other unions, you don't see them. It shows us that we are a union that not only leads workers, but that leads society as well. And I'm more than certain that colleagues from Uma Agri, Kruger, Lowveld Chamber of Commerce and Tourism will talk more about the high electricity prices on their business chain. But as a militant trade union, we have always believed that not only do we represent our members or the workers, we also represent the unemployed who are dependent on the salaries of our members. I mean, there's been different studies that shows how many, one salary supports how many people. Obviously depends on the size of your family. I mean, if the size of your family is Mr. Zuma's family, you may go to like 30, 40 family members. But on average, one salary supports from 5 to 10 members of the family who are unemployed, because we are living in a country where there's so much unemployment. So the impact on and I'll come to that point, when there's closure of companies, it's not only on the face that you see in front of you, it's on those 10, 15 people that you don't see, or 30 for those who are having bigger families that you don't see. So you may think you have retrenched 30 people or 50 people. In essence, you have 500 people are suffering as a result of that retrenchment. Okay, just the impact briefly, Chair, on Mpumalanga in the recent years. Delta EMD here around Nelspruit, there was a closure, which key to it was electricity, high electricity tariffs. That led to approximately 400 jobs being lost. As Mancro, Machado Dorp works, closure resulted in about 600 workers. Emalachlin, areas around the Highveld. Everest Steel, most people who are from Mpumalanga know we used to have Everest Steel. Everest Steel, we lost 1,800 workers. Venkem, Vanadium, 250 jobs. Recently, and I don't know why my office forgot to put this on my presentation. Transalloys, that's where we were reporting in the recent REC chairperson that Section 189 has been averted at Transalloys in Witbank, where about 300 employees are going to be affected. Transalloys has written to everyone at ESCOM, CEO, the former CEO, the current CEO, the minister, even the new minister who can dance. They wrote to him as well. No, don't laugh. I see ESCOM managers are laughing. You might be caught on camera. But even that minister who dances, they wrote to him. They are presenting to us that we have written to everyone. All our profit, all our revenue goes to electricity. ESCOM is refusing to give us any breaks on tariffs. Then eventually they ended up, because we are obviously a strong union which will represent the workers at all costs, they ended up withdrawing Section 189. But the report that we are receiving recently from our people from Transalloys is that, no, comrades, we think you should have accepted that Section 189 because at least there was a bit of money that we were going to get in severance package, chairperson. Now we suspect that even if they were to issue a Section 189, they have not been paying suppliers, they've not been paying so and so and so and so. So the company is about to go to a forced retrenchment that it may not even have enough for Section 189 packages. Then we'll end up like a Everest Highveld Steel. This 1.8 workers that I mentioned, they never got their severance packages because the company didn't have money until today. That's why whenever as a union we are trying to persuade, hi comrades, let us try to fight this Section 189 as much as we can. Comrades are always saying, no, we don't want to end up like Everest Highveld Steel, where the company is going to be closed when it has got nothing left to offer for us. We'd rather go and be unemployed at home. At least they've gone out with some packages and so forth. Beggarsford, Glencoe, we have already spoken. We have not yet spoken about Glencoe. There's another slide coming up. 500 workers losing employment there. Asa Metal, 400 jobs. Mapok Mine, 200 jobs. And ESCOM is talking about reflective tariffs agenda when they want to speak above us with too much English. In essence, ESCOM wants an increase of 446 billion increase in 2026, 495 billion 2027, and a whopping 537 billion in 2028. For ESCOM customers, this will be like 36% increase for 2026, 12 for 2027, 9% for 2028. And for municipal customers, which they did say that most of us, 60% of us, fall there, it will be an increase of 44%, an increase of 3% for 2027, an increase of 11%. And this 3% and 11% obviously lands on a higher base. You know, it's the strategy. ESCOM knows our strategy of negotiating. We always try with a higher increase, 10%, and then say 7, and then we say 5. Because this 7 is going to land on 10. A 3 is going to land on 17. So that's the impact of what they are requesting. And as a trade union chair, we can confirm we do have members at ESCOM. And we know we might be reminded of our submissions come wage negotiation season. But we have not only a responsibility to our ESCOM members or society, we also have a responsibility to society, because our very ESCOM members are from society. So if these tariffs are going to suffocate society, they are going to suffocate our members at ESCOM. So as the largest trade union in the country, Chair, we completely reject the application of ESCOM. We're already experiencing high job losses, company closures as a result of companies unable to do business in this country, worsened by load shedding, and recently the so-called load reduction. And ESCOM doesn't like to talk about load reduction. There's a load shedding. Load shedding is still continuing. This thing that load shedding is not, no, it's there, but they just gave it a new English. The same way electricity cards, they named it load shedding. That was just electricity cards. There was no electricity. You know, when you are expecting to my mother, she says, Mutanam, there's no electricity. Man. Don't give it a name. So it's continuing with the load reduction. And as the working class and the poor can barely survive the current rates as it is. And more increases will drive our people deep below poverty line and increase the number of the working poor. There was once a coin, Chair, that was coined by Zwelinzi Mavavi, who's now the General Secretary of SAFTU, that you can't have a country that has got many people who are working, and those people are poor. They may as well just be not working, you know, maybe rather go and do content on social media or something. Instead of waking up and work for electricity, work for food, work for you know, there's nothing left for you, but you are just slaving yourself day in and day out. You might as well not be working. So this electricity increase that ESCOM is seeking is going to create a large pool of the working poor, a large pool of workers who, we spoke about retrenchments, but there's also employers who are unable to give increases genuinely, and there's nothing we can do. Sometimes it makes our members very angry against us as the union leadership. But the employers opening up their books, they're saying, look, our profit is going only to electricity with the current tariffs. So imagine the ones that they are calling for. They will leave not only this province as a ghost province, Chair, but the whole country as a ghost country. And these uncompetitive tariffs, Chair, are used as an ammunition by employers to attack the workers through a cancer of retrenchments or refusal to give any increases. As a result, workers are either laid off or remain employed but cannot keep up with the cost of living because they didn't get any increases. Currently, there's ongoing retrenchments at Glencoe, Mercedes-Benz, South Africa, Ivan Jim, the NUMSA General Secretary, who are supposed to be is busy with these retrenchments. They are keeping him very busy. ArcelorMittal South Africa, Ford, and these are big companies that are providing serious cash injection to the economy. Foundry owners, because we also have foundry owners, and I think Renew Consulting touched on that as well in their presentation. They are already raising serious concern to the union that the current unsustainable operations, the current tariffs makes their operations unsustainable, and undoubtedly will start having foundry closures like your cast product, those big foundries in Ekurhuleni, which I think our colleague from Renew Consulting referred to. Municipal area debt has gone from 2.6 billion as of the 31st of March 2024. It is now at a whopping 90 billion. And if ESCOM is not able to collect debt, that is not our problem. It is ESCOM's problem. The people who are supposed to be held accountable, okay, as long as they are not NUMSA members, must be held accountable for that. The public cannot be held accountable. It is now clear that ESCOM has no regard of the catastrophic implications. My colleague from Renew Consulting calls it astronomical. I think I love that word more than catastrophic. The consequence of these increases will be astronomical to the economy, to the working class. Should NESA grant these increases, will literally become a ghost province and a ghost country where literally everybody is unemployed and the crime is order of the day. As it is, the crime is the order of the day. And it can't be. It can't be that we are comfortable that unemployment is shooting above the roof. You see a person next to the, I was told that, because I live in Joburg actually, I was told that I know Nelspruit is better. Because in Joburg, you come close to the car, we close the window. So colleagues were saying, I know, relax, here they are not like that. Where people are literally, when you stop at the robot, they take something out of your car. It's crime, and it's crime that is driven by unemployment. What ESCOM is seeking is going to double the current unemployment. If we think the current unemployment is a ticking time bomb, ESCOM increase will be actually a trigger to the bomb. There shall never be real economic stimulation in a country that will see meaningful job creation. And Chair, you posed that question to the leadership of ESCOM. The table posed that question, and the table was actually exposing ESCOM that, man, we have been asking you these questions. You have not been answering, but no, we'll come back. You know, that's ESCOM when they don't have answers, but no, we'll write down. Why didn't they write down after Cape Town? Why didn't they write down after Bloemfontein? They simply don't have answers. So they are managing us here that we'll write down. They must write down and they must send to all of us. Or in the next hearings will be there, Chair, will remind them that you said to write down. Maybe by now you have written down. And as a trade union chairperson, our union position has always been known on independent power producers. We believe they are not assisting ESCOM. If anything, they are milking it. We have already given a number of examples above of companies which had to close due to suffocation of ESCOM uncompetitive tariffs. We are sitting with a number of companies already which have given less or closed the companies or not given increases. In the engineering sector, which is the backbone of this country, the employers are now offering increases on minimum rates of pay. So in closing, Chair, we support option 2 in the carbon tax. Our support believes that the electricity generation levy must be removed completely. We saw the Treasury paper. The rationale of option 2 is to effectively replace the electricity generation levy, which is around 8 billion per year. In principle, it should not lead to any potential increase in prices of electricity, as the tax burden of electricity generators should remain relatively similar as the tax shifts from electricity levy to carbon tax. Electricity generators can deduct a portion of the renewable premium. However, the incentives of electricity generators should change significantly. In the current design, carbon tax liability is zero for ESCOM, as it is outweighed by the deduction of electricity levy and the renewable energy premium. In this portion, carbon tax will start to apply, and managers of electricity generators will start to factor in levels of carbon emissions in their business decisions. There will now be an incentive to lower carbon emissions, Chair, we submit, to reduce their carbon tax liability. Concluding remarks, Chairperson, we hope and pray that these public hearings are not a tick box exercise, because we have been worried about NESA at times, but we are worried, Chair, that sometimes you undertake this and then you still give ESCOM a steep increase, and then we wonder, who were you listening to, Gandhi? So it's just a humble. I'm not like Chairperson. I'm not saying. Nani man, don't just do this public hearings as a tick box exercise. The working class are living casualties of these high prices, and as a result, we request that, with all humility, that you take our views into account, that you eventually reject this application by ESCOM. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Nusa. I'm going to ask if Mr. Mbombela has some questions of clarity. Please go ahead, Mr. Mbombela.
Thank you. Mr. Scottson, may you just help, on the application by ESCOM, page 101 in particular, in what has been published, there's a part there that your members are directly affected by. There's an increase in the salaries. I think the number that ESCOM is put in there is 7%. Is that number fine to be touched, to be reduced, so that we can reduce these tariff increases? The second one is that your companies that you've listed there, Glencore and the others, they have negotiated price agreements, and NUMSA supported those negotiated price agreements, but because those price agreements, you supported them, part of this increase, about 5.7% of it, is due to those agreements that you supported. So what's your view? Should we have more of the other companies getting negotiated agreements and then get the rest of the customers paying for those negotiated agreements? Thank you. Those are the two. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just to add on that, you will also see the concerns around the number of employees, the increase in the number of employees, and also if you look at the operational expenses that are part of this tariff application. They add just above 10% of the total revenue that is required, which is a lot, and that also is a concern to the regulator insofar as efficiencies are concerned. What would you say the energy regulator should do to treat this cost pertaining to the employees? Should we allow them? Should we not allow them? We are taking, the point that you said that, you reject the increase. But there are employees that are supposed to go to work and do some work. Should they not be employed? Should they not be compensated at all? Because they will need money. We just want to get clarity on that. The other point, the question that I would like to get clarity on, with regards to the closures that you've mentioned and the impact, are you saying that those closures were caused by the electricity prices, or the electricity prices had some impact? I'm asking this question because ESCOM earlier on said that when it comes to industrial customers, there's inelastic demand, meaning that there's little response. It's like industries can take any price increase, any price level. So that is the level of responsiveness. So if they increase by 20%, the industry will still buy electricity. The demand will not be affected. That's what they mean about inelastic demand. So it's the level of responsiveness. So how do you deal with that response from ESCOM and the fact that you say that some factories had to close down because of electricity prices? If you can deal with that. And when you deal with 14 Struandale, may you please also just, for correctness there, deal with Uqebecha spelling. It's one thing the pronunciation, but Uqebecha ingabi Thank you.
No. Thanks, Chairperson. Thanks, Chairperson. My friends at university always try to say, guys, put some on this. Yeah, no, we'll correct it, Chair. Look, starting at the back, I think, and interestingly, you collapsed them, Chair, when you asked them this question. Of electricity prices and lack of responsiveness from companies. That's just not true. That is not true. And for ESCOM to say that under oath, I just found it shocking. A typical example, and I wish I could have asked my officers to display the number of letters that they've been written to ESCOM on trans-alloys. I won't even mention Everest Steel and the others that ended up closing. That because ESCOM has got so much monopoly on energy, exactly what you said, Che, they say their lack of responsiveness is because of that. They have no choice. They were supposed to simply say they have no choice but to buy to us. But the way they put it, they said, no, they have no problem. It's not they have no problem from buying to us. They have no choice. If they had a choice, they would have long left ESCOM. That's what I think in principle Renew Consulting was saying. So that's just not true. The companies are struggling as a result of high electricity prices. Electricity is the main contributor. It was worsened, I agree, by a load shedding, which is still a problem of ESCOM, not a problem of NUMSA or TA or Renew Consulting. It's ESCOM. Whichever way you look at it, it's ESCOM that got us where we are. That got us in this. And how did they get us through here? Through corruption. We know. We must not come here and speak too much English. ESCOM management and those who were responsible for ESCOM were corrupt to the core. All of us are suffering. So that's just the truth, so that we don't speak past each other on these issues, Chair. So I just need to make it clear that even on the claim code question, the other companies, the main contributing factor, Chairperson, normally through Section 189s, the companies are opening up their books. They will show you the cost of electricity. And we agree we should be able to negotiate better increases. We wanted to support trans-alloys on that. Fortunately on Glanco, when we supported them, they were quick. ESCOM, it depending on who you are talking to at whatever time. That's just another problem of ESCOM. It has got so many managers who are responsible for so many things. That's why you even have head ministers who are having Mantashe and Sputla. You don't know which one to go to. It's the same with the management at ESCOM. So depending on who you speak to, we received a positive feedback on Glencoe and others that you mentioned. But on trans-alloys, we never, up until today, we have never received any positive feedback on trying to reduce the tariffs of, give them some special dispensation. Chairperson, Chairperson, you're asking me about, I think the colleagues next to you, about the high cost of, you see, that's why Ivan Jim was supposed to be here himself. I may say things that are not in line. But this is the view of NUMSA. One, employees generally must always be given a living wage increase. And we submit, Chair, within the current dispensation, if ESCOM can reduce on unnecessary expenses like diesel cost. They've got so many frivolous and unnecessary cost on these contractors which are brought by their friends, and so there's a lot of cutting that can happen at ESCOM, and you still pay employees. Those employees are not many. In a country that, I guess in a country of our unemployment, we can never lament the number of employees who are employed. That can never be a premise we move from. We can say, where do you trim down to accommodate that 7%, Chairperson, on these other costs that they cannot give? They could not give you the breakdown of maintenance costs, but they say we are going to write them down. When did they know that they are going to come to the public hearings? They knew way in advance. When are they going to? Where are they going to get them? Those are the costs that they need to reduce on. Then everybody will be hit within the current regime. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Munsa. We appreciate your time. Thank you. Thank you very much. We are moving on now to the next presenter, and we have Agri Mpumalanga. Agri Mpumalanga, Robert Daval. All right, thank you very much. Do you have any objections in taking the oath?
No.
Thank you. May you please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly declare that the evidence you are going to provide to the panel is the truth and the whole truth?
I'm the executive manager of Agri
No.
Mpumalanga.
Just the swearing. They are just trying to conduct the oath here, to administer the oath. Do you solemnly declare that the evidence you are going to provide to the panel is the truth and the whole truth?
I do.
Thank you very much. May you please state your name and your designation at Agri Mpumalanga.
Yes. Executive manager, Agri Mpumalanga.
All right, thank you. May start with your presentation.
Thank you, Chair. And good day to everyone here, and also the other presenters. Agri Mpumalanga is the provincial affiliate of Agri South Africa. At our side, we host 30 farmers associations across the province. We represent about 600 commercial farmers in the province. Chair, I believe that we are not the first province, and some of these arguments, I think you will used to it perhaps at this stage, but that will emphasize the importance of that arguments. Agri Mpumalanga submitted a written response as requested, and this oral submission serves to support our submitted comments to NERSA. ESCOM argues that under recovery of actual costs in the past led to the current application for a 36.15% increase in revenue. What is strange for us is that in the agricultural sector, normally when you have economy of scale, the need for the bigger income is less than when you have a small scale farmer. So it doesn't make sense to us. So we acknowledge that ESCOM faces many challenges as outlined in their submissions. But with that in mind, that we acknowledge it, we cannot understand how a company as large as ESCOM, I think perhaps they are the largest company in South Africa, that they cannot, with all that clever people in charge there, that they cannot manage to make proper use of the benefit of economy of scale. That doesn't make sense. However, I state today very clearly to NERSA that the Mpumalanga agricultural sector will not be able to absorb the requested increase by ESCOM for the 2025-2026 year. If this application is approved by NERSA, it will likely have disastrous consequences in terms of unavoidable tariff increases for the agricultural sector, and specifically for intensive operations within the agricultural sector. NERSA, you
please remember, agriculture is a price taker, not a price maker. Almost all commodities in our province at this stage are under real pressure in terms of commodity prices. There's not even one single one. Just one example. In Nelspruit area, there's almost, or about, there's about 50 farms in the market with no buyer at all. The agricultural sector do not have any control on our prices. Eskom mentioned earlier today that electricity tariffs are lower than many other countries. Tariffs in our country are lower than other countries. Again, to NERSA, keep in mind that in most of these countries Eskom referred to, the agricultural sector are subsidized by government in a very high level, on a very high level. And now, you must keep this in mind. In South Africa, the agricultural sector does not receive any subsidy from government, not even a cent. So I don't think it's fair to show us figures of other countries. If you want to compare apples with apples, you have to compare apples with apples. The rest of my comments will be in regard to the questions that you ask us to present on. Question 1A, as I mentioned already, Agri Mpumalanga responded to the MYPD6 application in writing. You will have it. Question 2A, 1, treatment of coal costs. And this only in one sentence, but it is fully handled within our submission. Agri Mpumalanga is of the opinion that the cost of coal should also be addressed in terms of the 2023 VGBE report from Treasury in terms of inefficiencies and poor governance. So NERSA, please don't ignore that report. You will find a lot of answers to take up your responsible as it is displayed there behind you, Chair. Question 2A2, treatment of operating cost, in particular workforce costs. Eskom referred to an annual decrease in sale volumes of 0.5% per annum, a trend expected to continue in future. Against this background, one would tend to expect workforce costs to also follow a downward trend. Eskom indicated that local electricity prices are amongst the lowest in the world, and referred to it just now. Whether local personnel costs, however, is supporting these findings, that is debatable. And once again, I think NERSA must use their capacity to check. Specific benchmarking is probably required to determine whether Eskom operates as an efficient licensee with respect to workforce cost. Eskom participates in market surveys. It was by Deloitte salary survey, but indicated, and I quote, salaries at a lower level of business are positioned above market median. However, managerial level remuneration are closely aligned with the market. Now, clearly, management structures as well as workforce costs should be scrutinized by NERSA. Maintenance costs. Over half of the power stations are over 40 years of age. Power stations supposed to be decommissioned are brought back into operation and no new power stations are planned. This implies that existing capacity has to be run harder with a greater demand for maintenance. Eskom calculated compounded annual growth rate CAGR based on their actual and projected expenditure on maintenance of 4.45% over the 3 years. The compounded annual growth in total operational cost based on the original decision by NERSA in 2024 amounts to 14.5% according to Eskom. Now, NERSA has not provided any analysis for its previous decisions. This demonstrates the inadequacy of NERSA's previous decisions. There is an almost 30 billion, the 30 billion is the difference between 93.3 and the 61.4 billion difference in the respective calculations. This will require serious explanation and clarification since operating cost is the second largest term item in the revenue application and a major determinant of price increase. Question 2A3, treatment of regulatory asset base. Depreciated replacement cost assets constitute the bulk of the regulatory asset base and will decrease substantially over the particular period. The value of the assets was determined in March 2020. In 2024, more than 500 billion was added to the opening balance as a valuation adjustment, doubling the value of RAP. NERSA should probably revisit these figures with respect to seriously inflated new generating facilities. In brackets, replacement cost could be much lower. And the second one, at last, some of the existing infrastructure or plants is unlikely to be replaced, implying that historical cost might be a better basis for valuation. In terms of question 2, number 4, sales forecasting, Agri Mpumalanga questions the absence of cost reduction measure despite lower sales forecast in case of a successful application. The revenue application by Eskom will result in tariff increases which could lead to reduced demand, pushing more consumers towards alternative energy sources, particularly those who can afford it. This would negatively impact Eskom's revenue and potentially lead to further price hikes. Eskom should rather align its costs with real income. And then you have asked Eskom to explain or give more detail regarding their figures on inelasticity between 2010 and 2020, but I couldn't understand that they give us a better answer on that. So please check in terms of that inelasticity. I hope it's correct pronounced. Check on that after 2020 because there was a major change of habits by consumers. Question 2B, it's about comments on the utilization of Eskom's fleet and how that should be forced into the revenue determination. If Agri Mpumalanga understood correctly, Eskom indicates that up to 2030, no power stations will be decommissioned. Eskom application included this expectation in their calculations, if we understand correctly. Question 2C, in terms of the above, how should NERSA exercise its discretion in this regard, and specifically to this application? Whether NERSA will be in a position to exercise any discretion in this regard is unlikely, as Eskom deemed it necessary for optimum or perhaps maximum production of electricity. Question 3, A, B and C, and that's about the NTC-SA, whether separate revenue determinations for NTCA generation and distribution can be done in the short term is unlikely. That it should be done in the future is advisable. Operating costs, asset lifespans, cost of capital will be more clearly delineated. Inefficiency probably earlier identified, and the extent of cross-subsidization internally made clearer. So we believe that is the route to go. Question 3D, stakeholders are requested to comment on the imprudence, inefficiency of Eskom and how such imprudence, inefficiency should be addressed in terms of the ERA, and that is very clear, the regulator.
Mr. Duffo, you've exhausted the 15 minutes. Can you please try to wrap up? You've exhausted 15 minutes that was allocated. May you please try to get to the end, please? Thank you.
Okay, I will cut short there, but the regulator must enforce performance and compliance and take appropriate steps in the case of non-performance. And about the revenue accounts, seeing that NERSA has to also deal with the revenue clearing accounts, it probably has the mandate to process a revenue application. Question 4D, considering that the changes are a process over time, NERSA will have to handle the Eskom application in the current format. I will skip that one. The other ones we all covered in our
Yes.
submission. I want to conclude with two comments. Eskom showed in their submission earlier that the security of supply needs to be sought between security of supply, environment and affordability. 36.15% is out of balance in terms of affordability. So 36.15% is not affordable, not at all. And then the last comment. Eskom showed at the bottom, most expensive electricity is no electricity. NERSA, please take this one home. Most expensive food is no food. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time. We appreciate your presentation. If you would like to share some of those answers, if you wanted to emphasize anything, you can give them to Walter Mabunda so that we can have a copy of it. Otherwise, we do have your written responses. Thank you very much for your time. We are now moving forward. You have presented and clarified, We also do not share some of the information from other stakeholders that feel that they might be, targeted by stating out certain things. So we do have a responsibility of protecting certain information if they request us to do so. All right, we now move on to take a presentation from Kruger Lofeld, Chamber of Business and Tourism.
Good morning, Chair.
Good morning. Can you please attend to the person who's interrupting the proceedings? If you can kindly do so, and we can get the person out if the person is not interested in the proceedings. Can you please deal with the person that is making noise here? All right, ma'am, do you have any objections in taking the oath? No. All right, may you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly declare that the evidence you're going to provide to the panel is the truth and the whole truth?
I do.
Thank you very much. May you please state your name and your designation at Kruger Lofeld, Chamber of Business and Tourism.
My name is Linda Grimbeek and I am the COO.
Thank you very much. You may begin with your presentation.
Thank you, Chair and colleagues, and I will try not to repeat anything that previous presenters have raised already, as we also have made a written submission. KLCBT represents approximately 1,400 businesses consisting of micro, small, medium and large enterprises in all industries, especially tourism related. In the Eklantini district, we are regarded as the official voice of business and tourism in the district. We also represent 23 other smaller chambers and tourism organizations. Let me start by appreciating all the presentations. Wow, these people know how to present. They really know how to tick the boxes to get NERSA approval. And definitely paving the way for an upcoming court case, I can see that. Chair, I will speak more to NERSA than ESCOM. I've had my turn with ESCOM when we dealt with it through the South African Chamber. When you talk about peer reviews, there was no indication of the inclusion of farming and tourism entities and also not SMMEs, as it has, as one of the previous speakers has indicated. We are not owners of dollars, and the entities that you have pointed out are owners of Forex. So that is also not the appropriate review. When we talk about benchmarking, we are not paid in dollars. We also have the burden of providing our own social services nowadays. If you go back to the 2001, where ESCOM was in a pristine state and even making adequate increases as we went along, we must remember that the same 36% that they now apply for is imposed on people who really do not have choices anymore in terms of upping prices, as people have indicated. We have to pay for private schools now, as government, the shareholder of ESCOM, has failed us. So we have to pay for private schools. We have to pay for private medical care. We have suffered load shedding to a tremendous degree, which left us in debt, which we are still paying back. We have unemployed grown-up youth that we have to take care of. We do not get subsidies as we have before. We are cleaning our own towns. We are contributing to feeding schemes. We're generating our electricity at times that it's not possible for ESCOM. Even if you talk about the farm, the cost of a bakkie has become the cost of a house because of all of these contributing factors. We don't have a railway anymore. So that that also increased the transport cost of our goods, and the fuel price have skyrocketed. So if your shareholder of Eskom has failed us to this degree, they come back and they want to put all those sins in one basket in the electricity increase. Going back to 2001 again, when we stood so proud, Mpumalanga had, I think, speaking under correction, 23 hydroelectricity plants. We were able to supply the entire Mpumalanga and then some more with clean electricity. That was all demolished in favor of big power stations, which are coal guzzlers, causing the carbon tax to be imposed. All those long distance lines that you compare your staff with was not necessary in those, if you kept to that model. So just quickly about our region, we grow our population here with 3.9% per year, which is a staggering rate with virtually no economic growth. Already a third of the population is classified poor, and if you include all the surrounding areas and foreigners here, we have a poverty rate of 50%. This trend will only become more devastating as this increases hammer us every day. So if we go with a large increase again, more people will be tempted to a life of crime, including the theft of electricity. And the fact that people are stealing electricity is just dumped back to the municipalities again, who cannot pay the electricity bill, not even the current one, because of that problem. And never is it even Eskom's problem. Never. It's always the government, the farmer, the municipality, and eventually the very people who are suffering are those who are losing their jobs, like our colleagues have indicated. So, obviously we are objecting formally against the rate increase, and I would like to remind you of the true purpose of the RCA and the MYPD methodology. It refers to allowing for prudently incurred under expenditure on controllable operating costs, not over expenditure. Maintenance, we all do maintenance. I don't know how you get to maintenance of those figures. The salaries in Eskom are definitely over market related, and at some point they will have to help to carry the burden as well. The RCA method was developed to protect the consumer and refund them when Eskom has overcharged them. It was actually not intended to be the other way around. Eskom is a for-profit company. It's not a non-profit company. It is also not a government. It is a for-profit company. As we are a profit company, I'm from a non-profit, you can't go back and say, oops, I've made a mistake, clients, please now give me money because I did not do my calculations well. It's unimaginable for a profit company. We need to do something about that. The shareholder, which is government, has to come to the party and look at it holistically, not Eskom in isolation. The entire failure of government and its municipalities has to come together in one pot, and we have to create a solution for that. Load reduction was mentioned. It's bitterly unfair. I feel it's completely unconstitutional. I can't believe it is still happening. The very townships you want us to develop, you can't. Kids go to school, come from school to do homework, there's no electricity. The spaza shops, which are killing the children with fraud food, they can't keep the fridges on. So, yeah, I think we must demand for business oversight within municipalities in the financial management committees. I think Eskom should actually ask that when they are under that review with the municipalities. The effects of corruption and mismanagement, again, not our problem. Load shedding was a result of this, Chair. And the very load shedding has destroyed our infrastructure. Again, at municipalities, our substations were wrecked. On the farms and in businesses, our equipment suffered. We have to rebuild our own infrastructure as well, not only Eskom. So they are not the only ones in this boat. I think where we should go from here is go with a reliable price increase structure over a long period of time. Come back and say over the next 20 years, we will increase electricity by between 5 and 9% per year, so that we are able to attract investors back to this country. Let's attract them back. They have left. The very benchmarking that Eskom was supposed to do and that you are doing, they have done, and they left the country because other countries were better to produce there. So let's get back to that. Another suggestion I have as the owner of the company, the government, go back and see where Eskom can possibly provide new services that can lift this country out of the gutters. For instance, if we were able to build a large smelter close to Leidenburg, we can get all those chrome trucks off the road. It can be smelted there, and we export 2% of the cargo. Our roads are under pressure because of that. Our border is a wreck. Just that one thing, if Eskom is able to supply it, we can do those. And a lot more jobs can be created because that facility is there. I don't even talk about the water. I'm under correction, but I think Eskom takes about half of the water of the country to produce ugly coal energy. While we have to be under water restrictions to irrigate our farms, we can't. It's drought, we lose jobs. So I can carry on and on and on that it's in contradiction with Eskom's strategy to ensure reliable energy supply supported by moderate electricity price increases through cost efficiencies across the business. That whole statement in their financial statement is definitely not a reflection of what they are applying for. So the effect obviously will lead to a lot of unemployment and more business closures. Eskom will lose more and more clients instead of taking a step back and say, let's cut this and do something decent with a decent increase so that we can keep what we have and build back. Not destroy the little bit that is left. I have mentioned what will happen to people not paying, etc., etc. And then previously we were told that when we said we request a CPI-related increase, Eskom was very quickly saying that electricity is not part of the CPI basket. But electricity cost contributes to everything in that basket. So if it's raised out of proportion, that whole basket is raised out of proportion. And it will again go to a large unemployment rate and a shrinking tax base and the whole lot. I've presented this before, actually in 2020, and it's become the reality now. So our recommendation in conclusion, Chair, if we can get costs to go up by a reasonable degree for this next period, no more than 9%, and for the periods above that, between 6 and 9%. We insist on government intervention, not a bailout, but going back to the drawing board and rethink the entire package of services and the cost thereof. We expect Eskom to show by reputation that they are able to manage the entity with prudence before they turn to consumers again, with more promises of things to be better in future. Cut your losses on outstanding municipal debt. It does not belong on your balance sheet. If you cannot get people to pay, you have to remove it. That is the law. So write them off, because now those same people are still not paying you. Write it off and say, from today you are paying. let's come together with a solution on how you will be able to pay, instead of just making the problem bigger and bigger. Make tough decisions with your costs, including the staff, including your contractors, your coal contractors, all your large expenses, your maintenance. There's still a lot of corruption. I promise you this is not ended. So it's ESCOM's turn to also contribute to the pot. Literally hundreds of businesses in our membership have already changed to alternative energy, ma'am, and either fully or partially. One of our large businesses indicated closure this morning in 2025 with a cost of 600 employees and 600 subcontractors going to be on the street. And that is in addition to 160 who've closed as a result of load shedding. And they don't just come back, they are gone forever. If we can only increase rates above growth rate if ESCOM enables the economy to attract investment and expansion by meeting and exceeding their mandates of reliability and affordability, not only in the short term, but in the long term. So I'm very sorry, my colleagues, but we can't bail you out again this time. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. You saved us only 4 seconds.
I know my place, Chair.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bukula?
I just wanted to get an understanding of the 9% maximum that you have. I'm not sure if you've used the combination of PPI, mining, industry, inflation, CPI. How did you get to it? Thank you.
This is the kind of increase. It wasn't a formula based on costs. It is a formula based on the kind of increases we can afford on our own goods and services. If you go above that, it is met with massive resistance and you lose your customers. And especially because we are really export based in tourism and most of our services, you have to be cognizant of that. If you go above 9%, people go to other countries. So that's my only formula and the only one that counts.
All right, thank you very much, ma'am. We appreciate your time and your presentation.
Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you. We are going to go on and take another presentation from Action SA. Tokos Lemashiane. Solemnly declare you've got 15 minutes.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. But before I start, I came a little bit late. I didn't hear the welcoming address of the Chairperson. But my concern is that I don't know whether the Chairperson explained to the House how these hearings are going to go about. I can understand the gentleman who was asking whether the public, are they not going to ask questions? Maybe if we're told that how it is going to go, because most public hearings, the public is allowed to entertain.
Ma'am, as you indicated, you arrived late. We've read out the rules of the public hearing, and we also indicated the opportunity that the audience has.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, with regards to any questions they may want to ask to the presenters, but also for those who request to make presentations, they have the gentleman Walter Mabunda, then they can advise us, because we wouldn't know sitting here and they have not indicated that they will be interested in presenting. So if they have any presentation to make, we've got people that can tell us who is interested in making
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you. Good day, Chairperson and distinguished members of the National Energy Regulator of South Africa. Today I stand here on behalf of the residents of Mbombela and millions other South Africans who will bear the brunt of your decision regarding Eskom's sixth multi-year price determination revenue application. What you decide here will reverberate across households, businesses, and local governments, especially in provinces like Mpumalanga, where rural communities and critical industries such as agriculture face immense challenges. Chairperson, the persistent electricity tariff increases compounded by economic stagnation and unemployment have pushed our people deeper into poverty and despair. For struggling households, this makes basic electricity an unaffordable luxury. For businesses, particularly small and medium enterprises that are the backbone of our economy, these hikes means closures, job losses, and an inability to contribute to economic growth for our fragile economy. It signals a worsening of poverty and inequality, as explained by my colleague who came before me. Let us not forget, between 2007 and 2022, Eskom's tariff increased by more than 4.5 times, while inflation rose by just 1.25. This discrepancy is unsustainable and unjustifiable. The planned tariff increases must be immediately dropped down. Impact on Mpumalanga's rural communities. Mpumalanga is home to many rural towns and villages where the people already endure the crippling weight of poverty and unemployment. According to recent statistics, Mpumalanga has one of the highest unemployment rates in the country. Families in these areas live on minimal income, often supported by social grants, and already face exorbitant costs for basic services. And remember, Mpumalanga, more especially this area of the Lufelde Hlanzeni, is surrounded by two borders, the border of Mozambique and the border of Swaziland. Those people also come here and also expect to be fed by Mpumalanga. The proposed tariff increases will force people to make impossible choices. Do they buy electricity to keep their homes warm during the bitter winters, or do they put food on the table for their children? Chairperson, I must emphasize that the basic necessities will exacerbate the already desperate conditions in our areas, making survival an uphill battle. Mpumalanga is often referred to as the food basket of South Africa, producing essential crops such as maize, citrus fruits, nuts, and vegetables. The province also hosts major forestry and livestock industries. Agriculture here depends heavily on electricity for irrigation systems, refrigeration, and processing of produce. Chairperson, Mpumalanga is a province that feeds our nation. It accounts for 13.1% of South Africa's agricultural production. According to the Census of Commercial Agriculture, Mpumalanga is home to 2,823 farms, contributing 34.8 billion to the country's agricultural income. We produce 29% of South Africa's soybeans, 32% of its grain sorghum, and 23.8% of its maize. In the Lowveld, renowned for its subtropical fruits, we grow 22% of South Africa's avocados, 18% of its grapefruit, and have the largest area in the country planted with macadamia trees. This province is also a major producer of broilers, contributing 19.6% in the country's poultry. Yet agriculture in Mpumalanga is highly energy dependent. Irrigation systems, cold storage for perishables, processing facilities, and the daily operations of farms all rely on stable and affordable electricity supply. Municipalities in financial distress. Chairperson, Mpumalanga's municipalities collectively owe Eskom billions of rands in unpaid electricity bills. This debt crisis is exacerbated by poor revenue collection and mismanagement, but also reflects the inability of residents to pay their electricity bills due to already exorbitant costs. With this proposed tariff increase, municipalities will find it impossible to recover the revenue from residents and businesses. This will deepen their financial crisis, lead to further service delivery failures, and ultimately undermine local governance. We must acknowledge that municipalities cannot pay what they do not have. By approving these increases, you are setting them up for inevitable failure. Chairperson, hosting this public hearing at the Mbombela Civic Center excludes the very communities that will be most affected by these tariff hikes. Residents in rural Mpumalanga cannot afford the travel costs to attend this hearing, nor can they easily voice their concerns through formal channels. This exclusion is systematic and deliberate. I challenge you to hold hearings in communities like Bushbuckridge, Nkomazi, Tabachwewe, Formagandebele. Visit these areas to see the daily struggles of people who cannot afford even basic services. Public participation must be meaningful and not a token. As a representative of Action SA, I want to outline our vision for a reformed energy sector that prioritizes affordability, stability, and sustainability. The first one is scrap blend tariff increases. These increases are unjustifiable and unsustainable, given ESCOM's inefficiencies and corruption. Action SA is committed to fight against them. Decentralize the energy market. We believe in capacitating and empowering municipalities to develop their own microgrids and renewable energy projects. In Mpumalanga, this means leveraging the province's potential for solar, wind, and biomass energy production. Promote competition through IPPs. Introducing competition among IPPs will diversify energy supply, drive down costs, and reduce reliance on ESCOM. Invest in renewable energy. And lastly, hold ESCOM accountable. Call for justice and fairness. Chairperson, South Africa is at a crossroads. Approving these tariff increases will deepen poverty, inequality, and unemployment, not just in Mpumalanga but across the nation. We cannot afford to sacrifice the lives and livelihood of millions to sustain a broken monopoly. I urge NERSA to reject these proposals and to champion a new vision for our energy future, one that prioritizes people over profits, communities over corporations, and sustainabilities over short-term fixes. I thank you. We will issue a written response.
Thank you very much. May I find out whether the submissions that you are reading from, whether you made them available to NERSA? Okay, thank you very much, ma'am. We appreciate your time. Thank you. We now would like to take the oral presentation from the Democratic Alliance. We've got Cyril Chweni. Do you need any assistance? Tatangcela I want to start. Okay. All right. So I asked whether you're going to be able to handle that. Do you have any objection in taking the oath? All right. Thank you very much. Do you solemnly declare
go back. So the issue here of corruption, put their system correct to manage our finances. The issues management. Look at how much the municipalities are owing ESCOM. How did we get there? How did we get to a point where municipalities are owing more than 90 billion to ESCOM? Why are we there? It's because of poor financial management and corruption, Chairperson. Chairperson, I think it will I'll be sounding like a broken record. My colleague from NUMSA has said it mouthfully. But what we are saying here as the Democratic Alliance is that if you allow this increase, which we think you should not allow, and we have made submission to that extent, this is going to have impact on the following. Because already the life is too expensive in South Africa. Already the food price and transport has went up. When you add this 40%, you are just saying to our people, choose either to have electricity or to eat. And it can't be correct. If you are a progressive country, we should not find ourselves to that point where people must choose to have lives or to have meal, where people must choose to close their companies. They've said it from the agricultural sector. We always complain that no, farm workers are not paid well and so on. It's because this electricity is taking money away. As a result, workers are paid little. And then we start to complain. I'm happy that NUMSA understands that. It's not that the employers are don't want to pay the workers. To that, Chairperson, and say let's give so that we assist them to be corrupt. So it can this tariff hike is going to us to be hobos because and all of that. So point has approved that you are actually sponsoring. Let's do not agree to this. For a household of 3 people for 2 weeks, that's 350. So we are actually saying our people must go on with poverty. Our people must increase to be in poverty. Business must shut down. All farmers must shut down. Big factories must shut down. Small business must shut down. All these saloons that you have around, they survive on that. If you increase this, you are saying they must close down. So where are we going to be as a country? So we are saying no to sponsoring corruption and mismanagement of ESCOM. ESCOM must get competent people, corrupt-free, which, of course, government should play a role to get that right. We can't sponsor corruption and mismanagement of funds. Chairperson, I don't want to take a lot. They've spoken. NUMSA has covered us. This must not be a ticking box exercise. I think in all the provinces that we have been, I never heard one person saying we support the increase. So there is no way you can come back and say people have spoken, we are granting the increase. I don't expect that. If you do that, it means you are not doing things right. All over where you are coming from, no one stood up and said we welcome the increase. So it can't be correct that at the end of the day, NERSA is coming back and saying no, we've approved the tariffs. It means this exercise is just a joke. It's a ticking box exercise. So we should respect it as such as citizens of this country. We should respect it as such as residents of this country. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Just before you go away, you just forgot to mention the part that NUMSA said maybe that's 7% that must be planted. So it's not that they rejected everything. They said the 7% must
so that everyone is allowed to have electricity. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. All right, thank you very much. The takeaway from this one is the issue of information that you've made available to the public and during the presentations, so people can be aware of even when NERSA raised those issues as the aspect. Bring back that slide and also the cost associated. And maybe during the closing remarks, you can touch on that aspect, if you can do that, so that we don't have to deal with this during the questions. All right, we would like to invite the member of the public. We've got the name of Land Gutsia.
Yes,
No,
so yes, I do have no objection.
you don't
My
have to.
presentation at all. Whether I'm saying yes, Nyabuma or Nyangibu.
Yeah, but Jen, can I address you to say that the public hearings are not public hearings of ESCOM. These are public hearings of the National Energy Regulator, and we are bringing to you ESCOM, giving you the opportunity. So should you have issues that you would like to raise with ESCOM, issues that you are not happy with, ESCOM is here and you have an opportunity to state those issues under oath. To state those issues under oath so that we can take your views into consideration. And your views must be factual and also be evidence that we take under oath. By so doing, you will be exercising your constitutional right, because you would have stated that these things that you are saying them under oath, and therefore your views must therefore be taken into consideration during NERSA's consideration of the ESCOM application. Now I'm asking you for the last time, do you have any objection in taking the oath?
No, I won't have an objection in taking the oath. As the parliamentarians are having no objections when they're spreading lies in cabinet.
Okay.
So, yes.
Can I continue to administer the oath?
Yes.
All right. May you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly declare that the evidence you are going to give to this panel is the truth and the whole truth?
It will be the truth,
Can you speak on the mic so that you are recorded?
as you has mentioned.
Please record what you are saying, or are you
I will present information to you that is
okay? All right. Please state your name and the constituency you're coming from, meaning the community or whoever you are representing.
Thank you. I'm Len Kutzer. I'm representing the Kern Burnside Interest Group, and we are taxpayers that is residing within the Mbombela municipality, and we are getting direct supply from ESCOM. And so we are having the whole full package of line fees, costs.
All right. I'm going to now time you. Your time starts now. You may start with your presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm having a problem with the public participation process by NERSA that is confined in a inaccessible area so that the community cannot access because there's no parking for people to attend these hearings. So NERSA has got a biased position towards addressing the concerns as a regulator on behalf of the public. So I'm telling you that NERSA is the public's enemy. So you can take it as you want or not. And I think there's evidence enough of your failures in protecting the public up to now. And it is recorded. If you want to follow it up, it is public knowledge that you failed in court cases against EFCOM by not having enough protection in order to make sure that the public is actually protected, as your profile is actually indicating. The problem that we are having is that NERSA has allowed ESCOM to extort the public with exuberant price increases. That is over 600% since 2007 up to now. And it's generally just increasing, and there's no ability of the public to withstand those increases. The inflation rate has increased over the same period up to a point of 127%, and then the politicians are feeding us information that inflation rate is so low at the rates at about 4% annually. But if you look over the period of the increases, that is not the case. As I said, as the politicians lie in court, I can probably also misappropriate information I'm standing here for. The problem is that we as taxpayers owns ESCOM. ESCOM belongs to us. We the taxpayers. Our tax money pays for ESCOM's existence. ESCOM is one company that is extorting the public to the point of unaffordability. We cannot afford to make a living in this country any longer because we cannot afford to buy foodstuff. We cannot afford to provide water for ourselves. The municipalities are collapsing. Our environments are collapsing because of NERSA's inability to take control of NERSA, because you're under the same legislation that NERSA ESCOM is running. So how can you be impartial in this process? You're not an independent body. And that is where there's a problem, because the same minister that controls ESCOM is dictating the rules on how you should operate with the public. And that minister and your budget is coming out of the ESCOM that we need to pay for at the end of the day. So that is the increase that is just there. Now, ESCOM has got it all building millions to build. There's hundreds of people in this country that doesn't have housing, but they would not even try and put that complex to the Department of Housing in this province and offset the budget from housing to pay the debt. So all that happens is on a monthly basis, they compound the interest and they don't care how they are getting the money out of the people. And then also, a message for the unions. The very employees that works for these people are making sure that everybody else goes out of work. So the unions that is having a process where one company regulates how people in this country must work has destroyed the ability of this country to move to the revolution 4 of industrialization. Because we cannot go to industrialization where more people can get jobs if ESCOM rates is totally unaffordable. ESCOM has lost 4,000 kilowatts, megawatts of electricity due to the load shedding shenanigans. That has resulted in numerous losses of individuals in their households. That has gone into additional costs for the insurances that we have to pay. So if anything in my house breaks, I now have to pay about the same price for insurance for a thing that is no longer working because of Eskom's load shedding issues. So it's a matter of these things are in cycles, and it's not only in silo thinking. And this is a problem where we are. We're thinking in silos. This country of us is going down the tubes because of this company that you're protecting. So that's why I'm saying NERSA is an enemy to the public and to me as a taxpayer. And this company that I owe is stealing money from me big time on a daily basis. So I cannot afford, my community cannot afford, the people that is here, the public that's supposed to be here and voice. You have selected a position where you could exclude the people, to toy and tell you straight, to go back to your masters and tell them, this is the public, we don't want this. So you're biased to the position to say that NUMSA is an agreement with a slight increase. You know what? Yes. When we sit there with our board, we will take all the positive answers and then we will say, you know what? Maybe we should give these guys 11% increase to cater for the salaries of the employees, which is already rich, so that the rest of the country can suffer and don't have the ability to eat. That's why Zamazamas are dying in the Stilfontein mine, because they don't have employment. They have to steal from this country. So this is what Eskom is creating on a daily basis, exhorting the citizens of this country to this level. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kutsier. Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to break for lunch. Eskom is going to prepare its response. As an applicant, it needs to respond to all the views or the issues that were raised by the members of the public here, as well as the presenters today. So that Eskom will be the last presenter of the day. And if we can break for lunch and then come back and allow Eskom to respond to the issues that were raised. Thank you very much. Lunch will be directed as to where we are going to have lunch. We are going to break for 30 minutes for lunch, so we'll be here at 1:05. Okay, lunch is served at the registration desk site. So we'll be back in the room at 1:05. right, shall we take our seats, please, so that we can resume the hearing? ESCOM, I think we are ready for you. If you can come forward and respond, please. At the back there, if we can keep the noise down, please.
Good afternoon, Chair and Chairperson Nessa. So what I'm going to do is to cutting across all the presentations with respect to the handling of the municipal debt, issues around corruption and issues around affordability. My colleague will then deal with some of the other aspects that are raised during some of the responses from the stakeholders in the room. Chair, with regards to corruption, ESCOM acknowledged that historically there were issues. In that regard, has instituted various governance processes. There's very little leakage, or to stop the leakage by addressing the fraud. Address fraud and corruption and ESCOM was subject to the Zondo Commission, and in that respect, ESCOM is addressing the findings of, is committed to addressing the findings of the Zondo Commission specifically, explicitly. In addition, we are performing a risk assessment of ESCOM's crime landscape, so there's a lot of view to stop the leakage, to plug the leakage. We've established a single investigating unit, again to curb instances of fraud and corruption and crime within the organization. There's a fraud has also been implemented. In terms of whistleblowing and managing conflicts of interest, so we're tightening that as well to ensure that where our staff are aware of instances of fraud and corruption, they can bring to fear of victimization with the necessary levels of matters and implementing disciplinary action, improving consequence management. I'll make a reference in just a moment. We're addressing ESCOM's security risk affecting ESCOM's operations. We are conducting investigations into allegations of former executives within the organization with a view again to ensure that there's the necessary losses that may have been incurred by the organization. Just looking at some of the statistics coming out of these initiatives. Dedicated state captured task team in relation to the Zondo. The recommendations include instituting criminal charges, consequence management against employees and suppliers, pursuing directed delinquency proceedings, civil recovery of financial losses suffered by ESCOM as a result of some of these actions. Then in respect of security risks and threats to holders, to address security risks, and threats to infrastructure, involvement of security services, for example. We are vetting, there's a security vetting program for all non-executive employees, all executive directors, within the organizations. And in this respect, we're being assisted by the SSA, the State Security Agency, in terms of issuing clearance, the relevant clearance certificates. We're optimizing processes and technologies to ensure that we curb instances of fraud and corruption within the system. Just some of the stats, there have been about 304 arrests that we note. There are 17 convictions. Then there are 145 cases that have been referred to the supplier disciplinary processes. 41 suppliers have been sanctioned with removal from the ESCOM database. 106 cases finalized, 28 suppliers files were closed. Given suspended sanctions, 2 suppliers sanctioned with removal from the ESCOM supplier database without referral, that are basically still under review. So these are just some of the steps that are coming out of the initiatives that have been instituted to look around or to curb fraud and corruption. With regards to affordability, as I indicated in the presentation earlier on, affordability is definitely a concern that ESCOM acknowledges, that with the price impact, yes, it's definitely. But what we're saying is, in terms of attempting to cushion as far as possible the impact on the indigent, the government electrification program will proceed as planned, or is proceeding as planned, to electricity. And as I indicated earlier on, the free basic electricity is available, although maybe not efficiently administered. In terms of the RTP, that the retail tariff plan, that and then also consumers, typically indigent consumers. This one is subsidized to a large extent, so that they don't feel the extent of the price increases as much as perhaps the other consumers within the ESCOM fold. Then in addition, I indicated that we've got the inclining block tariff to be charged lower tariffs, and again in this respect, table by ESCOM in respect of the retail tariff plan to consider a flat rate for these consumers, so that there is no incline. In other words, they won't feel the impact when they consume above a certain block of electricity. So these are still going on, and they're underway. And in this respect, as I said, ESCOM has put a proposal on the table, tariff plan, which includes changes to the inclining structure. But protecting the poor is a priority, and that other initiatives should be considered to protect the indigent and the poor from the impact of these price electricity increases. Right. Also, just to make reference to a slide I referred to earlier, we noted that the impact or the implementation of the free basic electricity is not as successful as it should be, only to the effect of 20%. The total population of people who are entitled to the free basic electricity is 10 million.
Mr. Mushushu, I'm sorry for coming in here. Remember, now we are not, redoing the presentation. And to respond to is the issue that we are about today. So let's saying that they cannot afford. Can you please do that? Taking into account that ESCOM was already asked in PE to conduct an affordability assessment as well as the socio-economic impact. And ESCOM undertook to do so. So now when you are starting on this, it seems you are not building from what ESCOM has already undertook to do. So it's a 7% that people say they are not able to afford. Are doing about that. And before we finalize, can you indicate so without talking to the FPE, which is a separate issue?
In a further presentation to that particular question, and I will not respond to that. Just with with regards to the municipal debt issue, ma'am, there was a question that was raised around what we're doing to contain that. And yeah, so with regards to that, I think maybe the stakeholders would probably be aware that ESCOM, in relation, in cooperation with national, that has not yielded the level of success that was anticipated. 14 were compliant, and there's an acknowledgement from all sides, from ESCOM side as well as from National Treasury, that has not yielded. Back to the table and look at other ways to try and resolve the municipal debt issues. To the extent of 2% of the allowable revenue, is that these arrear debts are normal costs of operation associated with running an entity such as ESCOM. So it does not include the 90 billion that is referred to as the municipal debt, because that is part of a different process.
I think we took to heart from members of the public the question about the elasticity that we need to percent price increase would look like from a demand perspective. I think that's something that we'll take on board, and then we will respond to that. Safe to say that even preliminarily on our data, it shows that cost component, it is expensive for our customers to maintain. Therefore, than what we had before. It is a sustaining ESCOM, sustaining and having that pillar of affordability. I listened with interest what Mr. Tommy between the electricity price municipalities, that indeed things to different customers depending on which municipality you are on, and the suggestion of let's have a normalized tariff across, or a standardized tariff across different municipalities. I think it's something that Sebota was very clear, ma'am, about the impact that this is having on industry. That yes, there are other factors as well that come into play that contribute to that. The economy is not growing as fast, but are increasing that fast, that actually that is having a negative impact. That is once again, it is something that we need to take into account and see where is the balancing point that will come into play there. Mr. Robert mentioned that the agricultural sector is a price taker, and presentation for the day. Here in Mpumalanga, we are, however, going ahead. Held in Limpopo, Polokwane, Limpopo, and then go to Gauteng, then finish off KwaZulu-Natal. I would like to thank interrupting the proceedings. To also thank all the presenters as well as evidence that the issues that we need to take into account as NERSA with regards to the electricity price has been requested. We will take all of the response. They couldn't provide some information pertaining to how they are going to address the concerns that were raised here. What we will try and do, once we get that information in there, that information is shared with the members of the public so that you can see how ESCOM has responded to the issues and the concerns. Would like now to thank the chairperson of the energy regulator for supporting me and making sure that he is present today so that we can handle this together. I would like to also thank the interpreters at the back, as well as our sign language ladies that assisted throughout today's proceedings. Thank you, NERSA management and those that assisted. Of the Civic Center here. Thank you. Going to go home and go home safely also from your side. Thank you very much.